Hi, everybody. This week we are going to narrow down our list of schools. This can be one of the most intimidating and frustrating things to do for most students and their parents, and we're going to break it down. How do you go from 4,000 schools to a number that's more reasonable, something that's manageable? We're going to do that right now. Now, I'm introducing this in junior year, but there's nothing to say, and I would even encourage people to start this earlier, even 9th grade, 10th grade, of course 11th grade, even senior year. Now, especially if you're a recruited athlete and you're trying to narrow down and refine that list earlier in your high school careers, 9th and 10th grade, use this method. It's a 4-step method, and I'm going to use my trusty whiteboard to walk us through it. So let's get started.
All right, folks, we're going to walk through a 4-step process that's going to help you narrow down your school choices from about 4,000 schools to about 20. And it all starts with step number 1 and our old friend, interests. What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? Now, if you've been a PrepWeller for the last few months or years, this is going to be very familiar to you because we've done activities and exercises and self-reflection to think about what you do love, what you're passionate about, what you're interested in, what types of books you read, what types of movies you go to, what are the hobbies that you love, what are the types of clubs that you gravitate toward in school, what are the TED Talks that you pick when it's TED Talk Tuesdays, what do you do in your free time? Now, the sum total of all this will be a pretty good indication of what you're interested in. Now, you might not know exactly what you're interested in at this point, or you might have multiple interests, but at some point you need to pick one and see how this process works. Now, for our purposes, let's assume that this person is interested in engineering. Maybe they're a cyclist and they like to take apart their bikes and they do a lot of fix-it stuff. They're pretty manually literate. They do well in calculus, they do well in math. People have told them they'd be a great engineer. So they're going to go for it. This is supposed to be a gear. Now, again, this might not be you. You might be interested in marine biology. You might be interested in theater, in robotics, in medieval architecture, in coding. Who knows? You'll get your chance when you do it on your own. So now let's go to step number 2. Step number 2 is all about careers. What types of careers should you consider that are going to help match up with your interests? Because guess what? Wouldn't it be great every morning to get up and to be happy about what you're doing in your job because you're interested in it? That's the be all and end all. That's what everybody wants. Now, it might take some time and some effort and some investigation and research to figure out which one of these careers or multiple careers would support your interests, but that's just something you have to do. And I'm going to go over that next when we go to the actual website that helps you do that. So let's assume right now that the person did that work and they decided on a career as a mechanical engineer. Great, we're done with step 2. Now let's go to step number 3. Step number 3 is all about college majors. What should you study in college that will help you advance in your career? Now, as a mechanical engineer, there's probably a couple different majors that you could potentially take. This particular person, let's assume that they chose mechanical engineering. Yeah, pretty standard for somebody who's interested in mechanical engineering. So now they have a major in mind. Now, mind you, have I mentioned the word college yet? No, I have not. I am only mentioning it now at the very, very end. Most people begin thinking about colleges. We start thinking about it now. The only colleges you should look for are ones that support the major that you're interested in. Because here's the problem that people run into. I see it all the time. They start thinking about creating their list, and they start a list of colleges that they've heard of, that their parents went to, that are close by, that have cool football teams. They see them on TV. They're on U.S. News and World Report. And when they finally come around to figuring out what they're interested in, what their major is, maybe 60% of these will not even have a major or a department that they're interested in. So don't waste your time doing that. Wait till you find a major that you're interested, then filter by colleges. Now, if we do this, we've probably gone from 4,000 schools. If we filter by mechanical engineering majors, we've probably already brought it down to about 400. Now comes the fun part. Now is when you start to filter by the criteria that most people think of right off the bat, which is geography. Where in the country is this particular school? That can be important. What about your SAT or ACT scores or your GPA? That's probably going to dictate the level of school that you're able to go to. How about sports teams? Are you a sporto? Do you want to have a big sports culture? Or do you want to play sports at a particular school? How about whether that school is private or public? Some people, that's something that they're interested in. Do you want to go to a small school, a medium school, or a large school? Are you able to afford the college? That's something that the parents probably are pretty interested in. Do you want a school in a rural setting or an urban setting? That's definitely something to consider. And lastly, how about the social life? Do you want a place that has mostly a Greek system, or do you want something that doesn't have a Greek system? So all of these criteria you have the ability to filter for now. And guess what it's going to do? It's going to drive this 400 number down to something more like 20 or so. This is a more manageable number. This is where you can start. Now, we're not going to discuss this right now, but eventually in our next lesson, we're going to talk about how to create a balanced list of schools, which means we're going to turn these 20 schools into a tiered list. And our top tier are going to be what's considered reach schools. Our middle tier are going to be called match schools. And our bottom tier is going to be called safety schools. And we'll talk about that in a lot more detail in a lesson coming up. But right now, I want to go to Big Future, this website, and show you specifically in real time how to make this process happen. All right, guys, here we are at Big Future, where the rubber meets the road. I'm going to do my best to show you click for click how to exactly mimic what we did on that whiteboard to get from 4,000 schools to about 20 schools. Now, of course, you're going to enter your own information here, but we're going to use our whiteboard student as an example to be consistent. So remember, step number 1 is what you're interested in. That particular student was interested in engineering. Now, step number 2 is career. So we're going to go to this Explore Careers tab and click down here. I'm going to focus my attention on this middle column here, which is career categories. And remember, I'm looking for engineering. So it's probably going to be in the science, math, and technology, and here it is. So when I click down here, I have a sampling of careers that somebody interested in engineering might really be interested in. So presumably our whiteboard student has gone through here and explored a little bit. Maybe they checked out chemical engineers. Maybe they checked out electrical engineers. And eventually they came upon mechanical engineers, and it sounded like that was something that they really liked. So what they probably did was click in here, and they started reading about a career in mechanical engineering. And they liked what they read, and they read through these bullet points, and they said, hey, so far so good. So guess what? Now we move to step number 3, which is selecting a major. So conveniently, in this right-hand margin, there are some related majors for a career in mechanical engineering. And remember, I said there could be a couple different majors that would be appropriate for a mechanical engineering career. And presumably our whiteboard student went through each one of these or some of these, and remember where they landed. Mechanical engineering. So let's look at that as a major. You pop in here. What does a major in mechanical engineering need to think about? What do they have to be aware of? What should they expect? So you read through these bullet points. You read through this abstract up here. You come over here and you look at helpful high school courses. Now, if you look at these and you say, oh, AP Calc, oh, I love that class. Computer Science, love it. AP Physics, I'm the only one in the class that got an A. I love all this stuff. That is a good sign. If we move down here, typical major courses, these are the types of courses that you will take as a mechanical engineering major in college. And if you look through these different topics and you love what you see, and oh, I'd take every one of these all night, all day, that's a really good sign. And if that is the case, then you probably want to go that last step, that 4th step, which is finding colleges. So I'm going to click this button right now, and this is going to go from 4,000 schools to I don't know how many. Let's click it and find out. Dun da da da, drum roll please. We went from 4,000 schools to 400 schools just by filtering by colleges with mechanical engineering as a major. Bam. That's pretty good. But remember, we have to whittle this down to about 20 schools. So let's see how we might do that. So remember, test scores and selectivity. For ease, well, let's go down to ACT composite, and let's say you did pretty well. Let's say you got a 35. That's a great ACT score. And let's say you assumed that you were only looking at most selective and very selective. Now remember, we had 402 schools, and now we are at 87 schools. That's a pretty big leap. Let's go down to type of school. Let's assume for right now that we want a 4-year school. Let's assume we want a public or private, doesn't matter. Let's assume a lot of kids that I talk to, they like a medium-sized school. Let's assume that they want a co-ed school. Now we've gone from 87 to 51. All right, we're making some headway. Now let's look at location. Where do you think you might actually want to go to school? Let's give Mid-Atlantic a shot. Let's say you would consider the Midwest. Let's say New England would be okay. And let's see, maybe the West. So you'd consider going to schools in any of these territories. And let's see, the 51 has gone to 37. That's pretty good. Now let's see how else we can filter here. Campus and housing. Oh, here we go. Let's say you only want rural or suburban. You don't want urban. And anything else? Let's leave it at that. Let's see how, well, now we're down to 23. Uh-oh, we're down to the 20 number. Let's do one more thing just for fun. Let's say we wanted to have a school that had women's golf. Let's just say the school that you wanted to go to must have women's golf. Let's see where we are now. Wow, 18 schools. All right, we're pretty close to 20, but I think you get the general idea. You've gone from 4,000 schools and you've narrowed it down to 18. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to go to one of these schools, but you can dig into each of these and look at the details on each of these. Now, we're going to do that in a different lesson, but you could do that for fun. But it's definitely a reasonable number of schools. Now, if the schools, maybe there's a school in here that you don't see and you have to move one of these levers, that's okay. You can move these levers all day long to widen out your list or to tighten up your list. But this is a great way to specifically and realistically and in real time show you how to go from 4,000 schools to just about 20. I hope this helps, and I wish you luck creating your list of schools.